Well, ladies and gentlemen, entrepreneurship is often a path to leadership and also to success, of course. And a growing number of women are launching their own highly successful businesses. It's time now to look at two inspiring stories here at the India Global Forum UAE. Please welcome on the stage. First, we have Arshi, Ayub, Mohamed, Zaveri, CEO of Trust with Trade Group. And also to Bhairavi Jani, who is the Executive Director of SCA Group Corporation. Is Bhairavi with us?
Yes, hi.
Ah, there you are. Okay, good. You're with us. Great. Brilliant. Well, thank you both for joining us. Really good to have you with us.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Now, let me start with you, Arshi. You are juggling several, leadership positions within your corporation and company. And how do you bring in those strategic initiatives?
Well, I'd like to first start with congratulating India Global Forum and Mr. Manoj for putting together such a wonderful audience. It gives me great pleasure to see a room full, predominantly male, and a woman speaking here. So thank you so much for having me. Within my leadership positions and the ones that I occupy in the UAE and around the world, the number one thing is that there is a great community of men who support that. Let me tell you, this may sound like a cliche, but the fact is that as much as there are people to put you down, but there has been a wonderful community of my male counterparts who have been vouching for everything that I do. We have to thank the leadership of the countries that we have been working with. Number one, of course, His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed, His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum. They have been championing the women leadership in the Middle East, not just in the UAE. They have been doing it for the last 2 decades, and which is why we are able to occupy and do what we are doing right now. Apart from doing manufacturing and doing most of the mining trade, 2 things that I'm deeply, passionately involved as of right now is into neuroscience and sustainability. The work that we are now doing in neuroscience for carbon control is practical, and the reason why I'm saying so is because we are able to leverage human ingenuity to be able to achieve that by creating natural carbon sinks that ensure that we create a complete circular model of sustainability, food security, industrial activity, and finally, environmental benefit. Secondly, it's into cognitive human enhancement by the way of neuroscience. We're able to achieve brain-to-machine calibration completely wireless. We're researching all of that with the wonderful brains that we have in India and in the UAE. So who do I credit those strategic initiatives? Definitely the men. Thank you so much.
Arshi, so when did your entrepreneurial journey begin? I mean, how did it all start?
I started out very young. Not to make it sound extremely fancy, but it's quite a simple story. I started out very young at the age of 17. I tried to fund my own business because that's how it is. You can't always rely on somebody else if you can't believe in your own self. I don't go by the ideology that look out for initial investment. If you don't believe in your own idea, and if you can't work for sufficient initial capital, you can't really expect anybody else to do it either. So I had the maturity to understand that very early on. And to be able to do that, I started working, I started selling clothes. I literally took up anything that I got at that point to make money, to get the initial capital to start my own work. And I'm not ashamed of that, Greg. There is no shame in admitting that the work that you do comes from a very small space. Then I got into shipwrecking. Now, that's not a natural extension for any woman or even a man. I don't think any men would also want to get into shipwrecking at this point They have a wonderful suited community over here, wouldn't want to get into that. However, this was not a natural extension for me either. I took it up, and even at that point, a lot of people told me, in fact, men told me that, why are you doing this? This is not something that you should be doing. Then what should I be doing? Maybe something that's a little bit more easier. So, would you say that to your son? No, I wouldn't say that. Would you say that to your daughter? Yes, I would. Then I think you need to change your perception, because that's not what you tell your daughter. That's not what you tell your son either. So I'm glad that the change of perception is slowly coming, and which is what really inspired me throughout my work here in the UAE.
Fantastic. Bhairavi, let's bring you into the conversation. You're a World Economic Forum young global leader. From what you've just been hearing there from Arshi, how do you also identify with what she was saying about starting an entrepreneurial journey?
So first of all, my congratulations to the India Global Forum and Manoj for putting this wonderful set of conversations together. And, when I was listening to Arshi, Gregory, it made me think about my own days when I started off. It kind of spoke to my heart because many women entrepreneurs that I engage with as well, we all start in the same place. We all start small, and we start with what we have in our heart and what our hands can do. It's always wonderful on the journey along to have family. I had my father and my mother supporting me fully, and also male colleagues to believe in you. If there were people who doubted that a woman could run a logistics venture, there were people who believed that a woman or a man, irrespective of their gender, as long as they knew what they were doing, were able to deliver to the market and to the customer. And so for as many non-believers, I met many more believers. And that's why I am here. And so I think I echo what I'm hearing from my fellow panelists. And I'm sure if we had more women here, we would probably hear the same story.
Great, thank you for that. Arshi, what would you say to young women entrepreneurs, or maybe young women who haven't even thought of becoming an entrepreneur yet, who possibly should think about it?
Well, I think the pandemic has really helped the entire circle for entrepreneurship. Everybody I know is doing something of their own, even whilst juggling a professional corporate position. So what should they really do? They should not, well, I can say one thing, that it's not just your individual passion that drives an entrepreneurial venture. You really need to have the mindset of a craftsman. What is it that I can offer to the world? You have to know that. Passion alone can't drive the venture. As much as it sounds good, as much as it sounds fancy, it doesn't drive the venture alone. So one has to be realistic, and one has to have the ability to fail. You have to be able to fail. It doesn't work otherwise. So women entrepreneurs, or for that matter, young men who are venturing into it as of right now, create your own circle, your inner circle of allies. And you don't create them overnight. It happens during their journey. I have a wonderful circle of male counterparts who are constantly supporting me. And that is quite a catalyst to my individual growth. So you have to create your own circle of allies, whether it be it friends or professionals or mentors, even for that matter, and really get into it. There is no better time for entrepreneurship than as of right now. We have digital literacy now becoming mainstream, even in university and even in schools. I know 14-year-olds who develop blockchain platforms, who develop payment platforms. So it's quite reassuring, the fact that today entrepreneurship is taking up that heavily, even in the youth. And that's what we need to do. If you believe in something, passion alone, network, and more importantly, find solutions. That's very important.
Bhairavi, what's your view on that, particularly with Arshi just has been talking about? A lot of it is support, isn't it, that you can get from not just friends and family, but there needs to be more sort of, grounded support for entrepreneurs and people wanting to get a start in business, particularly for women.
About 12 years ago, I led a delegation from India to form the G20 Young Entrepreneurship Alliance with young entrepreneurship organizations from around the world. And, the world was just coming out of the 2008 economic crisis, and there were all these questions about what can these G20 governments do to really foster entrepreneurial environment so that a job crisis could be averted. I think from that point, we've come a long way. Today, entrepreneurship is not being looked at just an alternative for job security, but it is being looked at as something that brings purpose, that brings ideas, that brings new way of doing things to the market. And I think there's no better time than to be an entrepreneur, whether you're a male or a female. In fact, technology, as Arshi pointed out, has democratized entrepreneurship so much that you are able to participate in the entire ecosystem far more easily than you could a decade ago. And I think governments, like the government of India, have done significant work in building startup ecosystems. I still remember in 2016 when Prime Minister Modi announced the Startup India mission. There were a lot of naysayers, and there were people who were saying, "Oh, you don't have kids who can finish college education, or we have issues in terms of jobs, and you're talking about a startup wave." I mean, look at just last year, India recorded the largest number of unicorns in the world. So I think today there is a lot of belief in entrepreneurship. Today there is a lot of support for entrepreneurs, and it's very different than it was when I started. I can tell you that. People don't look at young people anymore. You know, taking them less seriously. But when I was starting out in way back in 2001, it was difficult both being a woman and a young person. So I think there has been tremendous change in the last 2 decades, and it's up to the young people now whether they can make the best of the opportunity that is around.
So, Arshi, do you think starting a successful business is, it's the idea or it's the backing, or should a business succeed without a huge backing? I mean, a big amount of money. I mean, if you've got the right idea, will it intrinsically be successful?
Not really. You have to be realistic. Let me share a quick anecdote from my personal journey. That's what I can best say. When I got into shipwrecking, and the first time I made a call to my father, I said, there's this ship for 10,000 tons that I want to buy, and it would take a long time to be able to dismantle and sell it off. And it doesn't come for free. There's a lot of money that you initially need to pay in order to go to acquire. I said, okay, fine. And that's it. You need to have your set of believers, people who believe in what you can do. That's very important. An idea alone, a project alone cannot do everything. You need to have that community who supports you, who believes that you can work hard enough to be able to take this up. So without asking a question and without even asking that, do you even know how to do this? Well, I've had sufficient experience in oil and gas, fierce and non-fierce metals, but ships, not really. So at that point, there were no questions asked, because the fact that somebody believes that you can actually do this, and that set of community is very important. An idea alone, a project alone, just funding for the venture cannot really make it move. You have to have a fine mix of everything. So yes, you can have great ideas, but you also need sufficient funding. You also need a great network. You need to have a set of family and friends who can really support that.
Bhairavi, do you think that the borders have been broken down now? Do you think that now, if you're starting a company in India, you shouldn't just look just in India, you should look just at the global picture? Has the world become more global now, in your experience?
I feel that the world was always global. I don't know why, maybe because I come from logistics, and the nature of my work was always global. But can we say that today technology, access to information, ability to, network with people in different geographies. Has all of that improved? Yes, definitely. And so today's entrepreneurs are able to see more real global demand than we did, because we didn't have so many tools, digital or internet, to be able to even sometimes have that information. One had to visit a country, know people there to be able to expand. But as I said, knowing from my industry perspective, it always was global. I think what is truly making things happen globally today for entrepreneurs is the fact that there is a lot of commonality in language, in way of work, in things that impact. I mean, today between a developed economy or a developing economy or an emerging economy and an economy that's already very wealthy, the differences are there. But in terms of for entrepreneurs to be able to provide solutions, have access to certain tools, there is a lot of equality and equity that has come in. And I think that's fantastic.
Well, I would say that as, I think everyone should have kind of a mentor, and not just a mentor, but someone they look up to, right? If they're starting a business. Who was the one person you would say really had an influence on you?
My father, he was an entrepreneur. He's an entrepreneur himself. And as Arshi said, when I went to him and I said, I'm not able to do something, or if I were sort of said that there was something needed, he really, stood by me. And one of his teachings I will never forget. And, I was just 2 years into my business. I was finding it a little hard for senior people to come and work for my company because they didn't want to report to a younger woman at that point in time. And I was sitting in our kitchen in the middle of the night, contemplating whether I should discontinue my business, because I was not going to be able to grow it without, people, right? And senior people with experience. And I remember him coming up to me and saying, "So what's up?" And I said, "I think I'm going to close the business." And he said, "How many people work for you right now?" And I said, 52. And he said, "You know what? For one person's income, 4 people do well in this country. So, basically, one person's salary kind of supports 4 lives. So, if you shut your business right now, more than 200 people's lives will directly get impacted, not to mention your vendors, your customers, and other people in the ecosystem. So, whatever decision you make tonight, know that it's going to impact large number of lives." And somehow I think it was that conversation that changed everything about how I think of business. He kind of made me understand that business was not just about your own personal idea, your passion, or, you trying to make a mark in the world or in the market, but it was more about collective trusteeship of society. And that kind of changed the way I approached business, and I continue to approach business. So yes, my dad.
And Arshi, I've got to ask you the same question there. Who was your biggest influence?
Well, no prizes for guessing. Of course, I think for any woman, it's always initially they are, her father and her family, because let's be honest, that's realistic. You can't expect somebody else to believe in you if your own family, your own father doesn't. And I think that would be the case for any successful women entrepreneur. I can say that for anybody who's sitting over here. Your initial influence is always your father, your family. And then, of course, one of the largest influences that I've had and I've learned a lot is from the work that has been done by, all under the leadership and spearheaded by His Highness Sheikh Mohamed bin Zayed. The work that they have started 50 years ago as a federation in this country has really enabled women to take this place today. Today, this country has a Federal National Council of female representation of more than 50%. You don't hear those kind of numbers anywhere. Let me tell you that, even in the First Nations. So we have to give a huge, huge round of applause to the work that this country has done for female representation and for this female to come and sit in front of you and speak. So thank you so much.
It's right what you say, Arshi. The numbers, the statistics are there, and it's incredible, the change that has taken place over 50 years. Is that kind of sending out a signal to other countries?
With more than 9 female ministers in the cabinet of this country handling portfolios of advanced sciences, food security and climate and international cooperation, that speaks volumes about the work that has been done over here. Let me share another anecdote with my work with His Highness Sheikh. Fortunately or unfortunately, let me put it that way, I'm the only woman over there in the immediate inner circle. And the Sheikh mentioned very clearly that unless she's over here and she's giving her perspective, I wouldn't want to start the meeting. So those kind of people, that kind of a mind is very important, because every man present here in the room, if he gets up and says, we have to respect women and for what we hired them here to do. It's not good to demonize any woman or her voice or her opinion. Because remember, men are far more fearless when it comes to expressing what they want. Women tend to be conservative. But how is that a problem? How is that a problem? How is that a challenge? When you have contrasting opinions is when you can actually achieve something fruitful. Remember, it's not about competing with each other. It's about acquiring gender intelligence. Your different is obviously, your opinion is obviously going to be different from mine. But how is that a problem? That's actually a very good sign. And men, if today they are able to do that, which I see, this room full of men who are up looking at me, I think these things are very reassuring for the fact that women have taken these positions today. Why do we have that? Yes, of course, I'm deeply influenced by the work that has been done by this country. You have to remember that you will not see this kind of work in the entirety of the Middle East. But this country is a true flag bearer for the work that is done in empowerment, economic empowerment, representation, and more importantly, entrepreneurship. Women occupy massive, massive entrepreneurial positions in this country, and of course, senior positions in most organizations. How does that happen without the policy and participation of the government? It doesn't happen. We have to be realistic. So also, we have to commend the work that is now, I was hearing Mr. Amitabh Kant previously for the work that Niti Ayub has been doing to promote the entrepreneurial community. So commending Prime Minister Modi's effort and the relationship India and UAE have been sharing for the last, as much as I can say, the creation of the federation and in the constitution. We have to commend the mindset of such leaders. These are the reasons why women and men, young men and women, can really come up and take positions and start their ventures. Because remember, these people are backing you up. Your leaders back you up. If your leaders don't do what they do, we can't really do what we are doing. So that is quite, those factors are extremely important when we start any ventures or foray into new partnerships. Because the work that we do, it's not that easy. Let's be honest about it. Whether it is in any format, it is not that easy. So you need to have a complete participation of the government, of the private sector, immediate peer circle, and everybody over here who is looking forward to new relationships.
Bhairavi, you are a World Economic Forum Young Global Leader, as I've already mentioned, and you travel the world. Is there still work to be done, do you think, on getting a strong message out about women leaders?
Yes, there is. Because I think women are capable of so much, and we're only scratching the surface. I mean, as she pointed out, even in India, whether it's about girl child education with the Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao program, or the participation of women in our government and governance, or the Jan Dhan Yojana program, where banking has been made accessible to so many people, but women especially, and the Stand Up India program, where there's been special funding for women entrepreneurs. There's a lot of work that is being done. But I do think that there is much more that we can expect because women just have that much more to give. When you talk about women as members who can shape economic and political aspects of the country that they live in, or even globally, I think we need to understand that there are many, many women. For every woman that is sitting at a table like I do or Arshi does, there are many women in many countries who still don't have a seat at the table, who don't have that voice. And therefore, it is incumbent upon leaders, both male and female, but especially female leaders like us who have been beneficiaries of the visionary thinking of our governments that we take that leadership in helping other women walk the same road. Therefore, I really like when there are forums, mentorship circles that come up to have more women participate in public sector boards, in political leadership, in entrepreneurship, etc. I think at the heart of this is most important is the message that a leadership position or person who occupies that position in every country can give to the people, especially to women in those countries, is what Ashi pointed out, that that you should believe in yourself. When somebody at that level believes in you and your potential, it's very easy then in a way to sort of convince your own heart that you can do certain things, because years and years of social conditioning has ensured in many places that women sometimes are hesitant to take that first step. And I think men and family members and even female family members in your own immediate family, in your own society, and of course leaders of your country play a very big role in making that happen.
Great. Well, we'll wrap it up there, but really appreciate both your time. Arshi, Ayub, Mohamed, Zaveri, CEO of Trust with Trade Group, and also Bhairavi, Jani, Executive Director of SCA Group Corp. Really appreciate our session today. Thank you very much. Thank you both.
Thank you so much. Thank you.